What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. All right, so I've been waiting a while to cover the Indiana Jones films, and I'm actually really excited to talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark, mainly because I have memories of this movie going back only 5 years, about 6 to 5 years. So I was never really much of an Indiana Jones fan growing up as a child, and I only started getting into the movies at about, like I said, between 7 to 5 years ago, and I'm kicking myself for waiting so long to get into these movies because I thoroughly enjoy the Indiana Jones movies, and particularly Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think this is a great, just love letter to the old adventure movie serials of the 30s and the 40s. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas captured the adventurous spirit of those old movie serials in spade with Indiana Jones, and it works. Also, and it also works because you have Harrison Ford, who brings this roguish yet very likable charm to the Indiana Jones character, and it's no wonder why Indiana Jones is one of Harrison Ford's most beloved staple of characters. Indiana Jones is everything you want. He is a typical hero. He's an archaeologist who has a sense of adventure to him. He is a rogue. He's also a ladies' man, and he's also a badass. All these elements are what encompass, or what Harrison Ford encompasses with the Indiana Jones character, and you can't praise him enough. The performance of Harrison Ford in this movie is fantastic. He handles his the action sequences that Indiana Jones are in are all visually breathtaking. Steven Spielberg does a wonderful job at creating that right amount of adventure and suspense, and a little bit of horror thrown in there as well. And I think Spielberg does that fantastically with his style, and Harrison Ford sells it fantastically because he's a great actor. But that's not to discredit the other actors in this movie. You have Marion, you have the character of Marion Ravenwood, played by Karen Allen. The character of Marion is a former flame of Indiana Jones, and they kind of reconnect in this movie. And I like the chemistry between Ford and Allen. They work really well off one another, and I especially like how it has a slight antagonistic relationship to it, since they had a prior relationship before the events of the movie that and Indiana Jones kind of just abandoned Marion with. So I like how there's a slight antagonistic relationship to them, but there's also a love there as well. And both actors work really, really well off one another. John Rhys Davies plays the character of Sala, and I really like the character of Sala. I think John Rhys Davies gives him a bumbling personality, but also gives him a very warming personality as well. Like, it's like you want to be friends with someone like Sala because he's so jovial, and he comes across just the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And I like the chemistry between him and Ford as well. They work really great for one another. Denham Elliott is in this movie as well. He plays Marcus Brody, who is pretty much a curator at the museum and also has an association with Indiana Jones as well. He's briefly in this movie, for it's the Brody character who pretty much tells Jones to go on this quest to retrieve the Ark of the Covenant, which is what this movie is all about. So he's fine in the role as well. There's not really enough of Marcus Brody. You see him for like 5 minutes in the beginning, then you see him for like 2 minutes in the end. His character doesn't really get a whole lot to do, which is a shame because you could have used it. Because I would have liked to have seen more of the relationship develop. But luckily, as the movies progress, we get to see more. But for what it is, he has a nice little cameo role, and he's fine for what it is. The villain of this movie, played by Paul Freeman, is named Rainier Belloc, and I like the character of Rainier Belloc. I think out of all the Indiana Jones movies, Belloc is still the most interesting and probably the best villain in the entire series. And I just like the way that Paul Freeman plays Belloc. Pretty much, Belloc is an archaeologist like Indiana Jones, but Belloc is an archaeologist who pretty much steals everything from Indiana Jones, which gives him in which he has my favorite line in the whole movie, where it's like, "As always, Jones, what was once briefly yours is now mine." It's great. Paul Freeman gives Belloc this sleazy yet aristocratic personality, and I like the character of Belloc. I like Paul Freeman in this movie, and I like the interactions between Indiana Jones and Belloc. Like, these two men don't like one another, but there's a kind of an underlying mutual respect for one another as well, because they're both in the archaeological game, and Belloc flatly says to Indy that he's his shadowy reflection. So I like the character of Belloc. I like Paul Freeman in the movie. He's great. Of course, the Belloc character is working with a bunch of Nazis to retrieve the Ark, and the Nazis are just there as fodder. They're just there for people for Indiana Jones to fight and fend off as he's trying to retrieve the Ark. Their whole purpose is to grab the Ark for Belloc and give it to the Fuhrer. That's pretty much what the Nazis are there for. They're pretty much there as bodyguards for Belloc and for Dominoes for Indy to overcome. But they do play a role. And given that this movie takes place in the mid 1930s during World War II, it serves the purpose. They serve their purpose and they serve the purpose well. The production value of this movie, fantastic. Steven Spielberg is one of the greatest directors to ever grace his presence with Hollywood. This movie has has a very adventurous, has an adventurous spirit to it, but also has an underline of darkness to it, but also has a good balance of, but also has a sense of fun and does have a good humor with some of it, including some dark humor as well, where Indiana Jones is trying to find Marion after she gets kidnapped, and he sees this guy playing with a sword, and Indiana Jones just takes out his guns like bang. It's a funny scene. It's great stuff, and Harrison Ford is just, and his delivery in that scene is just so dry and nonchalant and has no dialogue whatsoever. It's just facial expressions and body posturing. That's what makes Harrison Ford a great actor. Like, he can do so much with just facial expressions and body posture than he can with actual lines of dialogue. That's why he's such a great actor. And of course, the end of this movie is also horrific too, because once the Nazis and Belloc open the Covenant, they pretty much just melt away, because the Covenant pretty much engulfs, because the spirits of the Covenant pretty much kill them all. Because I think because if you look at the spirits, they'll like engulf you or something like that. So, yeah, the ending is very horrific and graphic as well. And there's also this scene where Indy is thrown into a snake pit, and it's pretty much said earlier in the movie that Indy does not like snakes. So seeing Indy in a snake pit, the man is horrified by snakes, and he has the great line of, "Why does it have to be snakes?" Something like that. It's great stuff. Ford's delivering this movie is top notch, and he makes his lines just great. Oh, so yeah, like I said, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a great movie. You have Harrison Ford, who is excellent as Indiana Jones. George Lucas, as a writer and as a creator, did a fantastic job with the screenplay with the help of Lawrence Kasdan. Steven Spielberg visually brought this movie to life, and he gave it its identity and spirit. You have a cast of actors who are clearly enjoying themselves, and you just have a great adventurous movie with really well-directed action sequences, great acting all across the board, beautiful cinematography, beautiful set design and production design, which is why I'm going to give Raiders of the Lost Ark a perfect 10 out of 10. This movie is fantastic. And of course, there's a lot more to say about this, but I'm just going to stop it right there. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Raiders of the Lost Ark. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.